Hello and welcome to today's presentation on protein. I'm really excited about this topic because it's something that is very important. I identified that this is one thing that many people miss, their protein intake, because they are trying to make better choices when it comes to eating. They are trying to progress in their training, and protein is sometimes, oftentimes, the missing piece. And it's usually the people who think that they eat enough protein because they eat foods that contain protein. And when they track it, as they did during this presentation, for example, they find that they are eating much less protein than they originally thought. So let me help you through this. Welcome, I'm Daniel Weiss, your host. I'm a runner, a hybrid athlete, and a nutrition coach. Since 2017, I've been helping active individuals to improve their health, energy levels, and physical and mental performance. In this podcast, I want to bring you the lessons that I've learned through my studies, interviewing interesting people, learning from them, and from experience working with myself and with clients online, that will help you look, feel, and perform your best. I would like to invite you to join my weekly newsletter, Health, Energy, Performance, where I go deeper into the topics of health, exercise, and how you can take this knowledge and put them into practice. Because it's only what you put into action that matters. You can subscribe at danweiss.eu/newsletter. You will also find a link in the description below wherever you listen or watch this. So, protein. Let's start with why is it even important? Protein is important for building muscle, but also for building bones and to maintaining and keeping muscle mass and bone density as we age. It is also important for regulation of satiety. So if you're someone who is overeating, usually these people struggle because they are eating carbohydrate, fat-rich foods that are at the same time low protein foods. Protein also helps us with blood sugar regulation. We have so-called second meal effect. So when we have protein-rich breakfast, our blood sugar doesn't spike during the day as much. So it's beneficial for everyone, and especially for those with pre-diabetes and diabetes. Of course, protein helps us with body composition, whether we want to lose weight or lose fat, keep muscle while doing so, or when we want to build muscle. It's also an important part of immune system, as we will speak in just a minute, and it helps with recovery or regeneration after sports. But there are many things that people say about protein. For example, that it damages kidneys, and so we need to eat lower protein diets, which is not really true. We had this study by Jose Antonio, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, and they tested this hypothesis. And as you can see, people eating 2.5 to 3.3 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight for 4 months, and they didn't find any negative effects or markers on their kidneys. And these were otherwise healthy individuals. So unless you have like some kind of predisposition or you already have pre-existing kidney problems, then protein really is not or doesn't appear to be a problem. And keep in mind that this is like very high doses of protein. This is more than 4 grams per pound of body weight, which is really hard to obtain in a normal diet. So these participants had to really focus on that for 4 months. Another myth is that it causes thinning of bones. And originally, this idea came from measuring calcium turnover. So basically, like how much calcium a person is, how much calcium they kind of excrete. And with higher protein, there was like higher calcium. But this hypothesis turned to be debunked many times since then. So it's not really true. Then there are some worries that protein intake causes cancer. And here we need to be like really careful, because protein is like a whole food group, really big food group. It's entails like heavily processed foods. It also entails less processed foods. It contains animal, plant sources of protein. So we really need to be distinguishing between these sources. And some new studies are suggesting that plant sources of protein are preventative when it comes to cancer development, but protein is still needed. So it's not like protein, it's maybe specifically animal protein and specifically from highly processed protein sources like cured hams, cured meat, like hot dog sausages and so on. So this is something to take into account. That on the other hand, soy and soy products usually are preventative or help reduce risk of cancer, specifically like breast cancer or gastrointestinal cancers. So how much protein do we need? WHO, which is World Health Organization, recommends 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, or which is about 0.4 grams per pound. But is it optimal? So the way they arrived at this is that they took people and they were giving them protein doses in different stages, and they were measuring protein turnover. Again, protein that comes into your body, protein that gets excreted from your body, that was like in urine, feces, hair, nails, in any kind, shape, or form. Very dirty job. And they arrived at this number because the net nitrogen balance, the way how the protein turnover is measured, was zero when they consumed at about 0.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. But they did this like 0.8, just like a safety measure. So about 93% of population, if they eat this amount of protein, should be safe from like protein deficiency, let's say. But that doesn't mean it's optimal. One of the main critiques of this is that our body also adapts to low energy, to low protein intake, so it becomes more efficient with it. But again, it's not speaking about what is optimal for our health. And when we see, like in this study by Bray from 2012, we can see that increased protein intake was better as we increased protein intake from 0.7 to 1.8 all the way to 3.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. The protein turnover increased, and also the health markers improved, especially when it comes to body fat and body mass, muscle mass. So we see that low protein diet, which remember is just below what is RDA by World Health Organization. These people in this study consumed 40% more calories. So they should not be losing protein, right? So their body should not be losing muscle mass. On a low protein diet, they gained about 3.16 kilograms. On a high protein diet, which is 3.0 grams, they gained 6.51 kilograms. But how much of that was fat mass? On a low protein diet, it was 3.66. On a high protein diet, 3.44. That's starting to become interesting. And on a low protein diet, they lost even like 0.7 kilograms of fat-free mass, while on a high protein diet, they gained 3.18. So if anything, this shows that getting more than minimum protein dose is beneficial when it comes to our lean body mass. And I would suggest that it's also optimal for other health processes, as I will talk about in the next slide. So, for example, we have this problem. Many people nowadays are struggling with their health, especially with their gut issues. And they are being more and more intolerant to certain foods. Like we look a few years back and we didn't have as many allergies, asthmas, and food intolerances as we have nowadays. And of course, I don't want to state that this is only the case of protein because we are using more chemicals and so on. But the thing is that low protein intake is also associated with worse gut health, and especially of people who are really stressed, because stress damages gut lining. And stress can come from physiological stress, so like in athletes or hard working athletes, and also psychological stress. So, for example, from the perspective of amino acids, amino acids are the building blocks that build protein. So we eat protein to get these amino acids. 30 to 50% of what we take from food, from that protein, goes to maintaining digestive tract. That's a lot, right? It's not going all to muscle. Actually, to muscle mass, it's like 10% or less of the protein intake. So the amino acids are used for different things. For example, amino acid cysteine is essential for iron absorption. And this is what we see in athletes. Athletes, female athletes specifically, often struggle with low iron status. And they are often also in the state of low energy availability. So getting not enough food, getting not enough protein is closely linked to that iron problems and low iron status. Amino acids are also essential for maintaining smooth muscles, and smooth muscles are those that move our bowels, right? So they are directly involved in bowel movement. So that is why we can observe like bloating issues, for example, or constipation. Amino acids are also used in the lining of the intestines. So when you have damaged gut, this is when pathogens and toxins and basically also proteins that should not get into the bloodstream, because of the damaged gut, they can get there. And therefore, we start to see like rashes, eczemas, headaches, all these things that are associated with food intolerances and allergies. And all the other problem is also malabsorption of nutrients, because many of vitamins, minerals we absorb in our intestines. And when it's not absorbing, then it doesn't matter what you eat if you are not absorbing these nutrients, right? And we are back at iron absorption issues again. Then the amino acids also create lymphatic system, and lymphatic system is basically our immune system. So white cells, maybe you have heard of them, they're directly involved in the immune response. So if you don't have enough of that, we can also see that people are getting ill more often. So all in all, like when we sum it up, low energy intake with high stress situation creates damaged gut. And the solution for this is to simply said, eat more. And eat more protein, because just eating more protein doesn't solve the issues. We don't only need the building blocks, but we also need energy for our body to work. It's like having workers. So protein is the parts, building blocks, but you also need the workers, and that is the energy that we need through food. So you need to eat more. And well, in that case, so how many grams do we really need? What I would suggest for a healthy sedentary person, I would aim for 1 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. That is like 0.45 to 0.7 grams per pound. For ill and injured older, it's 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. Exercising individuals, 1.6 to 2.2, and older exercisers, 1.6 to 2.2. And why this might be controversial, that healthy sedentary who might not be exercising, why would I steer you towards the higher intake that is like 1.6 if maybe you need just 1 or 1.2 grams per kilogram? Well, because protein is essential for satiety. And based on my research, what I counted, it seems like 1.6 seems to be like the upper limit when you can get the maximum satiety effects from protein. So then it's better to use like vegetables and other foods that are filling, low energy density, contain a lot of also water. But so just over consuming protein will not help. And you can see that people get like that benefit when it comes to satiety when they go from low protein diet to, let's say, moderate protein or adequate protein diet. But if they just consume a lot of protein, they don't get that benefit, further benefit of satiety, which makes sense, I hope. So when should we consume? Well, theoretically, it doesn't matter, as a new study appeared just a few months ago. And why is this important? So this study explored like how does higher doses of protein are used in the body, because previously what we thought was that, well, you can absorb maybe 30 or 40 grams of protein, and that is the amount that will be utilized for muscle protein synthesis or for building muscle. But this new study actually shown that even 100 grams of protein will still be used preferentially to build muscle mass, or it will be incorporated in the muscle. So theoretically speaking, if you want to get 100 grams of protein and you want to build muscle, for example, or to maintain, you can get it in 1 meal a day. Now, the practical issue with this is digestion and getting that much protein in 1 meal. So it's better to spread it across 3 to 5 meals across the day. And you are also there, getting the benefits of that satiety, because if you get these 25 to 30 grams of protein in each meal, let's say three times a day, then you are covering your protein needs. At the same time, you are deriving the benefits of satiety promoting benefits of protein. And then you are also stimulating muscle protein synthesis like 3 times a day instead of just once a day. So, and it's also, I would say, normal eating, right? Not just trying to eat carbohydrates and fats or nothing at all during the day and then have one huge meal or a huge protein feeding. So it's more realistic. Now, let's play a game. We have proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, but many people, what they are struggling with is they don't know like what foods contain how much protein, which are rich sources of protein, which are not. So as you can see, we have different foods from broccoli through cheese, eggs, some nuts and seeds, tofu, even some pasta, cottage cheese, and grains, and what have you. So let's categorize them into protein, carbohydrates, and fats. I will start with the simplest. Protein powder, protein, right? Tofu, protein. What do we have here? Cottage cheese or skyr, protein. Okay. Mackerels, great protein source, right? Now, let's start with some maybe more controversial. Well, beef, protein. Well, maybe, but we have also cuts of beef that are very heavy in fat. So while it is a good source, great source of protein, it might contain also a lot of fat that you might not want. So it depends on the cut, right? Read the labels, check nutrition summary, for example, through Chronometer or any macro or calorie counting app. And that's the point today. Well, chicken breast, protein source, right? What about salmon? Salmon is very, very popular. So what is it? Carbohydrate, protein, or fat? Well, it's on that verge in between protein. It's protein rich and it's also fat rich. Eggs. Everyone's speaking about eggs like how great protein source it is. Well, one egg has 6 grams of protein and 6-7 grams of fat. So it's, from the calorie perspective, it's a richer source of fat than it is of protein. It's something to be aware of. I'm not saying not using eggs. Cheese. Protein, carbs, fat. It's white, so it must be protein, right? Well, it depends. So many cheeses are like half-half, similar situation to the eggs. So really be aware of it. Again, read the labels. The point of this is so you get educated. So don't just rely on what I'm telling you. I want you to go and explore. Track your food. Find that what foods that you are normally eating, like how much protein they contain. Then we have, for example, chickpeas. Protein, carbs, fats. Well, it contains all of them, but it has about 17 grams of protein per 100 grams dry, and about 40-50 grams of carbs. So it's protein-rich carbohydrate source. And this is a typical mistake among plant-based eaters, vegans, that they focus on, for example, beans, legumes as one of their main protein sources. Well, they at the same time struggle eating enough of this, or they overconsume calories when doing it this way. This is not my case. I can eat tons of them. It digests well for me without any problems. Another typical healthy eating plant-based protein misconception is that nuts are rich in protein. And that's true. They have about 30% of protein per 100 grams, but they are very rich fat source. So similar situation to legumes, nuts and seeds are protein-rich fat source. Chocolate. Well, the traditional chocolate is a combination of fat and sugar. Dark chocolate is mostly fat, but so I will put it somewhere in between. Again, this doesn't have very little, if any, protein. Nut butters, the same as with nuts. Okay, we have tempeh. Tempeh is a soy product or fermented soy, similar to cheese from the macronutrient composition. Little higher protein, little lower fat, but still it's like something to be aware of, that it contains quite a lot of protein, quite a lot of fat. Cottage cheese, pure protein source. What about potatoes? Potatoes are actually pretty rich in amino acids, but they contain very little protein. It's a specific, very common carbohydrate source, right? Bread. I'm speaking about normal bread, not some kind of protein bread. So it's carbohydrates, 10 to 13% protein content. Pasta, the same. Oats, the same. Any other grains. What about milk? I remember someone once said to me during presentation, well, milk is white, so it's a really great protein source. And well, it might be. It contains about 4 grams of protein and 4 grams of carbohydrates for 100 milliliters. So the problem is it's not like a good source of protein. It's that people don't usually eat or consume or drink half a liter per sitting to get 20 grams, right? But when combined with other meals like breakfast, yeah, it's a good addition, right? When it comes to plant-based milks, then the best protein source from the plant-based milks is pea milk or soy milk. And here we have rice, carbohydrate source. And then a similar situation with broccoli. Broccoli is rich in protein, but to get enough protein from broccoli alone, you would need to consume about 2 kilos, like that's 4 pounds of broccoli to get 20 grams. So yeah, that's your side dish, that's your bonus protein, not your main source. The main part of this, or take-home message from this, is if you want to boost your protein content in your foods, then focus on these foods right here that are rich protein sources. All the other foods, they contain protein, but they will likely steer you towards lower protein intake in your diet and higher calorie content, especially if you want to get protein from nuts, for example. So here are some examples. Like to get about 20 grams of protein, you would need to eat about 150 grams of oats or 250 grams of cooked chickpeas or 200 grams of skyr Icelandic yogurt. 3 eggs are just about 19 grams of protein. And that's a situation that I see very often, that people use eggs as their main protein source, which is great. At the same time, they use like 1 to 2 eggs and maybe 1 piece of bread. And they think like, I must be getting like 13 grams of protein or something. No, you are not getting even 15 grams. So that is why it is important to also track. A block of tofu that is 180 grams contains about 21 grams. One of my favorite plant-based sources, TVP or textured vegetable protein or soy protein curls or whatever it's called. It goes by many names. Just 50 grams dried contain 25 grams of protein. It's also rich in fiber, which many people are deficient in. And then, 25 grams or 1 scoop of protein powder is 21 grams. And here we have like a can of mackerels, 170 grams. You have 18.5 grams of protein, which is pretty good. Add it with a cup of milk or something like that. You are getting over 20 grams easily. So assignment for you for today: find your protein needs based on your body weight, like we did in the beginning of this presentation, and then brainstorm breakfast that contains 25 grams of protein or more. Because preparation is the key. We want to take action during this challenge, so this is what's important here. Looking forward to you in the next day. So thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed, don't forget to listen, like, and subscribe. And if you have any comments, questions, then post them down in the comments below or send it directly to me through the links through my social media. I typically answer to all the questions within my time availability. And if you like resources like this, if you don't want to miss any news or challenges that I run to help you live a better, healthier life and achieve your athletic sports performance, but also any other life goals, then make sure to sign up to my newsletter, Health, Energy, Performance, that I send out every Sunday. Link is in the description below.